What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4, Episode 19, All the Madam's Men. I realize that this is last week's episode, but I fell behind, so forgive me. So, this one, very exciting, very action-packed, but also a lot of revelations in it. So, first of all, we start off with kind of how the previous episode had ended off, and that is May giving Daisy her abilities back, and so they're breaking out of Hydra, taking on a bunch of enemies. Very action-packed, very awesome to watch. And then it ends with they get to the elevator. Here comes Ada slash Madam Hydra, and she's got two guys with her. And she just starts talking about, May, that's interesting. She's May the warrior, Mac the protector. I guess people can't hide their true natures, and also brings up Fitz as well. And then Daisy comes back with, what, not me? I remember my true nature. Uses her quake powers and knocks her out the window all the way down to the ground. I'm like, yeah, if only that could be actually Ada dies. But no, of course she survives that because technically she's the one that built the framework, so I assume that she built in some sort of hacking mechanism to keep her alive even if she falls 30 stories. But she ends up, apparently she fractures her spine in the framework, so now she's immobile, which also gives Fitz a reason to continue his research and continue what they've been trying to do, the mirror something. I can't remember what it's called now. But they've been bringing this up. Fitz and Ada have been working on this mirror image or whatever for quite a while. We finally learned in this episode that apparently Ada's been trying to build herself a real body with being actually human, flesh, bones, muscle, all of that stuff. And so that's ultimately been her goal this entire time through the framework, using Dr. Radcliffe, all of that. It's been so she can build herself a body. So that way she's not a robot with programming, now she's an actual human. So it's kind of interesting, but also kind of scary to think about. Just this entire time, she just wanted to be a real human. So she's killed people and, tortured people and held people hostage. So yeah, ultimately that's the biggest revelation in this episode. But also a couple other things we find out. One in particular involves Fitz. We see Radcliffe being tortured by his father, Alistair, and Radcliffe just kind of spits out all this information and kind of reveals, I guess, a little bit. I kind of figured some of this out, but we do find out that in the real world, Fitz's dad abandoned him, left him with his mom, and now in the framework, his dad took him away from his mom, and now he's been raising him all the time. And it kind of is the exact opposite than in the real world, where, in the real world, his dad left him, and so he was left with a caring mother, so he became a caring person. In the framework, his dad raised him, and his dad's not a caring individual. He's a brutal individual, and so Fitz grew up to be a brutal individual as well. And ultimately, I think this is leading towards the whole, Fitz is going to be kind of the last one to make it out. Because I really do think, because in the framework his life is so entirely changed, instead of being with his mom, he's been with his dad. That's changed the entire course of his life. Even, I'm assuming whenever he went to the academy, because it wasn't with his mom, it was with his dad that he went to the academy, his focus was more on his school rather than, he meets Gemma and they sort of start talking and they become friends. And I assume that his dad kind of blocked that out, said, don't care about anybody else, it's just you, it's just your work, don't focus on anyone else. So that ultimately just entirely changes the course of his life, and ultimately he is kind of an evil human being because of it now. So I really find that very interesting, and just how much his life changed just from being raised by one parent rather than the other is really mind-blowing. And I think Ian is doing a very, very good job of sort of changing Fitz's personality altogether. He seems like an entirely different person now, and good actors can do that, and he's done a very good job this season. Not just from this, but also getting to see LMD Fitz, the whole robotic thing was also very, very good. So he's really shown his acting chops this season. I really enjoyed that. The other thing that we found out, I guess, a bit more about was we found out some more about some of our characters and how their lives have changed in the framework, and some of them were really interesting. I think Coulson and Ward were really the two that we found out more about how they came to be where they are now. Coulson, we find out that somebody had come to ask him did he want to be a part of S.H.I.E.L.D, and out of fear he said no. So I'm guessing that's the one thing that Ada changed in his life, is that he said no to joining S.H.I.E.L.D instead of saying yes. I find that very interesting in that she took away one regret from everybody. I'm curious as to find out why that was a regret for him. Why did he regret joining S.H.I.E.L.D? I mean, part of it could be because he got killed while being an agent. And just everything that happened after that. A lot of it, the loss of his hand, the loss of friends and family. You could say that, yeah, he does regret joining S.H.I.E.L.D because he did lose a lot of things. But at the same time, we're starting to see where, even though he was taken out of S.H.I.E.L.D, that desire to help people is so much greater than the regret of all the loss that he had. And so, I don't know, I just like seeing that he sort of felt that way. On top of that, he's talking to Ward, who we find out in this world, instead of being recruited by Bill Paxton's character, I can't remember his name right now, he was recruited by Victoria Hand instead. And so, we saw it was kind of a similar story where he was in there for arson. His life was down in the dumps, but instead of somebody, a Hydra agent inside of S.H.I.E.L.D, coming to him and saying, hey, let me help you change your life, and turning him into a double agent, Victoria Hand steps in, and she's like, let me help you, and turns him into a double agent for S.H.I.E.L.D instead. So I don't know, I'm assuming Hand was a part of Hydra, but secretly was a S.H.I.E.L.D agent inside. At least I think that's what they're trying to say. But I just really like kind of the little subtle changes. One decision, one person changes, and all of a sudden, their entire life is entirely different. So, I don't know, I really like how they showed that just in a couple sentences. They didn't have to, show us this entire backstory. They're just like, this is what changed, and that's what changed everything for them. So, that all is going on. We see Daisy and May are trying to get back to S.H.I.E.L.D. while being chased down by pretty much everybody in the world because Hydra put out this bulletin saying that they were traitors against the state. And so, they get attacked, a couple of more action scenes, a lot of action in this, really good action as well. And so they finally get back to S.H.I.E.L.D. and they decide, look, we need to show them, the footage that May has, the body cam showing what happened, showing Hydra attacking the building, showing May saving people. We need to show this to the world so they can stand up against Hydra. And so ultimately they go to, funny enough, Bakshi is in here, and he's apparently like the headliner for Hydra. Every single time they need information put out there, he gets on the news and he's like, this is Bakshi, and I'm going to tell you what happened, Hydra style. So they end up capturing him, and so Coulson goes on the air and he shows them the footage and then gives a speech. And it was a really, really good speech, and I kind of figured, because one of the disadvantages of watching these episodes late is that I do follow Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on Twitter and Facebook, so at times, like, you'll see a notification pop up and it's like, I'm trying to avoid it, but I do catch a couple words. And so one of the things that I saw was that this speech was really good. And so watching it, I'm just like, yeah, that was a really good speech. And so ultimately, one of the things that ends off on is one of the agents comes up to Ward and he's like, there are people outside, and Ward grabs his gun and is ready to go, and he's just like, no, they're not Hydra. I think they're here to help us fight. And so it's kind of like an uplifting moment, like, holy crap, this is good. This is very exciting. But, of course, because not everything can end well for our agents, there is a moment later on where we've seen throughout the episode, we saw Ada talking with, what's his name? The Russian guy. I can't remember his name now. But it's the guy that's been funding the whole thing, the one that's been giving them a place to stay. He's much more featured in this episode, and of course we see he wants to kill people. He wants to shoot May just to end her resistance to the program. He wants to kill Coulson because he hates everything Coulson is. but because his programming tells him not to, he can't. He can't kill them, and he wants to so desperately. Well, one of the things that Ada tells him is that after she builds her own body, she'll be free, and he'll be free as well. And so, he wants to just kill all of them. So, of course, they're right on the edge of that, and that's kind of scary. On top of that, they've also found out where the Zephyr is that is holding Daisy and Gemma's bodies. So all of that is just kind of like, okay, they're very close to finishing what they're trying to do, which means at that point they won't have a need for any of the framework or the agents or anything like that. So it's kind of concerning to think that all it's going to take is just they get done with that and then they just start killing everybody off, and that's how easy it could be. So I am concerned going into the last part of this season, like somebody might die. I'm a little bit concerned for that reason. So what I hope they don't do is I hope they don't like kill somebody off and then use the framework as kind of like a, oh no, they're not actually dead. They find some way to bring people back. So like, Trip and Ward, if there's some way for them to come into the real world, I'd kind of call bullshit on that just because it feels like kind of a cop-out. Like, oh no, these characters aren't really dead. We're just going to bring them from the framework into our world. It seems a little too easy, but I don't know if one of the things they've kind of been pushing, and even in this episode, Ward has a couple conversations with Daisy where it's almost like it feels real at times. And you can see from the reaction on Daisy and on Gemma's faces that at times they're just kind of like, yeah, this does feel kind of real. Is this world just as real as ours, or is this all just a bunch of numbers and letters and programming? And so, there are going to be a lot of questions to be asked nearing the end of this season where, Ward is now a good person. Trip is still alive here. Mac's daughter is alive here. So, yeah, you kind of have to wonder, what's the choice going to be? Is it just going to be destroy the framework, or is it going to be like, okay, let's leave the framework intact so that way those people can continue to exist in their world as well as ours? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what the plan is coming down to the wire. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen next. Obviously, I've got last night's episode to watch, so if you know anything about that, don't spoil anything. I am going to watch it as soon as I get through getting caught back up on all these shows. So, but I'm looking forward to see what the rest of this season has to hold. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this episode? Let me know what we can talk about and discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe, future Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.